The first essay in this year's UPSC essay paper was Forest Precede Civilization and Deserts Follow Them. The essay topic is straightforward enough. The core theme of the essay topic is obviously the relationship that man has with nature. That relationship is exploitative, that relationship is not reciprocal. We know all that from our preparation of environment, from our preparation of general studies. If you don't know, you will get to know as a UPSC aspirant. This is core stuff. In fact, it is the content of one of the biggest areas of the examination, which is environment. But to put it in simple words, what I'll do is, while I do the analysis of this essay topic, I will tell you what I think should be done. I'll tell you how I would have written it. I'll tell you what the narrative would be if I was to write it. I'll give you an example of how I would have written it. And then I'll tell you something about the structure of how I would have structured those points, right? So I'll divide this discussion into three parts: the central themes, the narrative, and the structure. Now, moving quickly to the central themes. What are the central themes here? The central themes are very simple. The first one is the nature of exploitation that we have with nature. That relationship has been such since time immemorial. There are various reasons for it that you can get into later. But you essentially have to say that human beings have this superiority complex where we consider ourselves as above nature. We consider ourselves as the owners of nature. We consider ourselves as the entitled owners of all the natural resources that exist, as if nature, the ecosystem, the plants, the animals, the resources of the earth are for our taking, as if we are entitled to them without any reciprocal responsibility. That central assumption is key to humans. No other animal treats nature that way, and that is why humans are able to develop at a very fast rate, but they often end up paying the price. And you will notice that in this essay topic, when you talk about this overexploitation, one of the important themes is obviously history. You have to talk about historical examples because the essay topic, the language of the essay topic is very clear. You can't substantiate the statement until you have some precedents and some examples from history to support, and these three strong arguments you'll have to present. One very pivotal example that can be used and should be used is the Mesopotamian civilization. The Mesopotamian civilization was called as the cradle of civilization at the banks of two major rivers, which were the Tigris and the Euphrates. Now, the theory goes that the civilization collapsed because of over-irrigation, because of desertification, because as civilization grew, the ways of utilizing nature were not developed sustainably enough. And so over-exploitation led to the decline of that civilization. The same theory does apply also to the Indus Valley civilization, although the decline of the Indus Valley civilization is disputed. It is not exactly clear, and there is no consensus within the archaeologists and the community about how it exactly declined. But one of the major reasons could be climate change. Another one could be overforestation and over-irrigation. So you could use that there also. You can talk about the Sahara Desert, which was once a lush forest, and you can then talk about the future and how global warming, the melting of the glaciers, and all the various changes that are happening around the world around these times are impacting that relationship. This is just the core theme, just some of the few examples you can use, and obviously it goes without saying, you can use any examples you wish. The point is that you are able to substantiate your arguments with examples that are concrete, such that the writing of your essay is not entirely abstract. It has some weight. It has grounding in the real world. It has grounding in historical examples. So that's the substance. That's the content of the essay. That's what you are saying. That's the point. Those are the points and the examples you're using. But what is it that you are actually saying? What is your argument? What is it that you are really saying? If you were to summarize your essay in 2 lines, in 2-3 lines, what is that essential argument that you are making in your essay? That is the narrative. How does it flow? What are you saying? Are you giving arguments, counter arguments? What are you doing here with it? Are you agreeing with the statement? Are you going to agree with this statement at the end of the day? Or are you going to show some opposition to it? Or are you going to present a counter argument to this? Do you think that this is always the case? That forests precede civilizations and deserts follow them? Is this always the case? Does it always have to be the case? That is the narrative of how you'll go. Obviously, most of the essay, much of the space in your essay over this essay topic will be contributed towards and dedicated towards supporting that statement and giving various examples about how this comes into effect. So your focus is on the how this happens. You're not questioning why it happens. You're not questioning if it happens or not, if it will happen or not in the future. Most of the space of your essay you dedicate towards the how, why, not the why, the how more importantly. Then you come to the ending part of your essay. Whenever maybe you want to include that in your conclusion, you may want to include it in the concluding paragraphs in the body of your essay, but your narrative has to shift a little bit, in my opinion. And you have to say that this has been the case, but it does not necessarily have to be the case in the future. And then you have to talk about sustainable development. You have to talk about how we can mitigate this from happening and how this appears to be happening in the future. So take that futuristic angle, and this is very obvious. I think anybody who would write this essay would follow that narrative. So this essay topic, very straightforward, follows very obvious themes which should be covered, which anybody with common sense can guess at, follows a certain narrative which is also not hard to guess, follows a certain structure as well. Now when I say structure, I'm talking about how you're presenting, what you're presenting first and what you're presenting second, etc. The introduction obviously can be anything here. You can talk about an anecdote, perhaps. You want to talk about the IPCC report on climate change. You want to talk about a recent incident of wildfires. You want to talk about the increasing incidence of natural disasters. That's up to you. The way you present your introduction is entirely up to you, and you have autonomy in that. Just make sure that what you are saying is substantiated. Don't keep the examiner waiting till the end of the essay. Tell him what you're going to do. Make your point, give your example, give your anecdote, give your analysis, give your data, do what you want in the introduction, but make sure he understands what you're going to do later, that there is going to be a counter argument and there is going to be a futuristic analysis also at the end of the essay. So that's how I would structure the introduction. Come to the body of the essay. In the body of the essay, I would say give some emphasis on the historical antecedents. This essay topic would be served best, I think, if you added tangible historical examples, a few of them which I mentioned. I would devote about 20 to 30% of the body of the essay to the analysis of climate change and what is happening now. That actually makes this statement seem like a prophecy. What is happening now that actually makes it seem like a prophecy? I would spend some time on that. My conclusion would be focused on the future completely and on the solutions of what has happened so far. Can we break the cycle of history? Can we make sure that we learn from the mistakes of the past? Can we make sure that we leave our future generations with a better world, or one that is not desertified, one that they are proud to inherit? Are we going to do that? And if yes, what are the things which are standing in our way? And one additional suggestion I have here, while you are writing all this, you are commenting on what humans have done. But I would spend some time, maybe in the body of the essay, to talk about that fundamental psychological relationship that we have with nature. And the relationship we have with nature is one of separateness. We always assume that nature is outside and we are inside, that we are separate and distinct. We don't consider ourselves as an integral part of nature. That feeling of being integrated with nature, you will find very rarely, perhaps in some tribal cultures. You'll find that in tribal cultures in the Amazon, you'll find that in tribal cultures of people who live in very close harmony with nature. We don't live with harmony in nature. We live at a distance, at a safe distance from nature. We take from nature, we do not give back. We are not integrated with it. We don't think it is our mother, we think it is our provider only. So that psychological distinction has to change. If that changes, and that you can do with education, then you can talk about educating people at a young age about all of this. If that relationship changes, then you can expect long-term generational changes, behavioral changes, actionable changes, apart from just policy changes. So that one angle you can mention. If you do, I think it will add some value. But that's pretty much it, and it's quite simple and doesn't require too much analysis. A fairly simple essay topic. If written well, it should fetch you decent marks.